So we're gonna read this article by Art and Transformation in the Journal of the American Philosophical Association, suggested by Cinesemiotics, and so it looks fun. Don't know what this is about though. So, I gotta update my 1 second. Yeesh. This is 322. That number is so huge. I can't even tell you. I did not expect him to be reading 300 papers. There we go. Okay, so now the bookkeeping is done. And thanks again, Anonymous Shearer, for the bit, whoever you may be. Hello. Okie dokie. We may ascribe several ends to art. It can serve to please and instruct, as Horace once said. But works of art can also serve to change us. They can inspire us to become better, worse, or just different than we were before. I will be focusing on a particular instance of this third end. To wit, I aim to explain how art can inspire the radical kind of change known as transformations. Okay, so I've actually looked at some of this stuff. Yeah, this L.A. Paul got a lot of play. So L.A. Paul identifies 3 kinds of transformations. Epistemic transformations involve the revelation of something previously inaccessible to us or the discovery of something that we could not have known beforehand. Stock examples include tasting new kinds of fruit and seeing a new color. So, I mean, yeah, there are fruit out there that have different tastes. Like, you could eat something that you've, something pickled if you've never had something pickled before. No one can tell you what a pickle's gonna taste like. I mean, it's like, oh, it tastes sour. That does not cover what a pickle tastes like. So it's like, you might have had other sour things, but you're not actually gonna know. And, there's new kinds of flavors out there in different colors you haven't seen, all sorts of stuff. So, personal transformations involve a change in our core preferences, the ones that define who we are. Thus, personal transformations result in our becoming different people. Paul points to taking a college course and reading a powerful work of fiction as examples. So, I mean, there's a question of exactly how different you are, but when you're a kid, you're somebody that you aren't the same way you are now. And so the idea that something can transform you, be it just living or whatever it is, that does happen. People grow up. They're not the same as they were when they were, teenagers. And even from teenagers to a toddler or a teenager, you're not the same person as you were. So it's not like you have to be old to experience transformation. In fact, if anything, when you're younger, you've got more transformation, and then you may stabilize a little bit when you get older, maybe not, but who knows. Okay. Epistemic and personal transformations can cut across each other. Some epistemic transformations are mundane, and some personal transformations are predictable. Just growing up is very predictable. Yet it is possible to undergo a combination of the two. Paul calls such experiences simply transformations. Paradigm examples are becoming pregnant, fighting in a war, undergoing a religious conversion, going off to college, embarking on a career, and picking up a new hobby. What is going on? Losing connectivity. Am I dropping frames? No, okay. My stream deck went down though. My thesis is that art can inspire transformations of this third sort. Here I follow the path laid by Nick Riggle. I've read Nick Riggle before. He's seems like good people too. He's a lot of fun. He was a professional. He was in the X Games back in the 90s. So Nick Riggle was he's a roller skate person. He had the inline skates, and he was doing all sorts of tricks with that. Okay, but whereas Riggle focuses on how performing and participating in art can transform us, I will argue that appreciating art can do so as well. I use the word art here in an expansive sense, taking it to include both high and low forms. Yet I do not claim that all art inspires transformations, or that only art can do so. Moreover, I allow that art may try but fail at this project. It may invite transformations but receive no uptake. One final clarification is in order. By inspire, I mean influence or impel. On my view, art does not give us good or normative reasons to undergo transformations. It motivates us in ways that bypass our rationality. Hence, we speak of a dangerous power. So this is the magic theory of art, that art can do some sort of magic to us. Whether or not that makes sense, I don't know. But the idea is that great art can inspire us to be better or somehow change us in ways we could not have predicted. And so that is sort of like a magical power, at least relative to us. What is going on with the Stream Deck? But whatever. Decided it's going to kill itself. Let me check one thing real fast. Let's just close this. Reset. There we go. Okay. Nick Riggle. Wow, that name seems dangerous to get wrong. Nick Riggle. Yes. I've met Nick Riggle. He's nice. Like, he was in New York once. Okay. 2 motivational obstacles. Transformations are hard to inspire. 2 obstacles stand in the way. First, we do not know what we are getting ourselves into when approaching a transformation. Just as I do not know what I'm getting into when I read something like this. Like, you say Nick Riggle is hard to say. Yeah, that could be dangerous. I've said a lot of things online. I'm not exactly sure how it goes. Aristotle says, all those qualifications kinda annoy me. I don't know. It's for me excessively modest claim. There are at least one instance of art being transformative. Yeah, that's fair. To be fair, I thought of this paper. I tried writing something short in this vein once. I submitted it to a conference. It got slammed very quickly by all the people there, and the reason is because there are a lot of fucking people that have very, very, very strong opinions about all this. So what happens here is this has probably gone under review a few times, Aristotle, and this is why they had to be really, really specific about like these sort of claims that they're making here, because this was the review process that bit these people in the ass. That's exactly what this is. And I sent the paper off once. I never sent that paper off again because I was like, no fucking way am I dealing with this. I don't know JAPA as far as a journal goes. I know that the Journal of the American Philosophical Association, which is the professional association for philosophers in the United States, is they run it, but I don't know exactly what they're up to. So you like why you say it's strange, I don't know. Lumpy says, "I'll be a stick in the mud, but isn't the topic of this paper common knowledge already?" Well, we're gonna find out, Lumpy. Maybe it's not. Sometimes this stuff is common knowledge. Sometimes it isn't common knowledge. Sometimes one of the things that happens is like last time when we were discussing what were we discussing? Well, we were discussing internet phenomena and deep fakes. So the whole point of like the deep fake paper was not to actually discuss anything that wasn't known, but whether they had some interesting perspective on it. And so maybe what's going to happen here is, yes, the art, it can change you, and this is not a new thought, but hopefully the way that these people approach it will actually add something to the discussion. And so you might be right that it's the topic is not new, but hopefully the analysis will. Aristotle says, JAPA gets good circulation, but it's supposed to be generalist and accessible, but sometimes the comments you get are really harsh or precise for a generalist audience. Okay, so maybe their editorial policies are a little funky. That's interesting. Cinesemiotic says, philosophy of art is a small tent, and there's some loud voices in academia, and names that you keep reading more and more about. Seems a little in need of diversity, though. You know, people defend their domains vehemently, so... Okay, but like this is the thing. Yeah. So we may be getting into some of the sociology of philosophy in this paper too. Like, why is it written this way? Why are certain claims being said? Yeah. But like I said, I actually, like, I'm not kidding. I was quoting Nick Riggle talking about L.A. Paul. Like, this is exactly what I was, I was talking about L.A. Paul using Nick Riggle as a foil. So, like, this is exactly what I was trying to do, and I decided it wasn't worth my time because it was going to be too hard to put a paper together that could get through a review. So, because I was only writing it for shits and giggles. I wasn't writing it because this is, like, my area, but I was like, oh, I got something to say, like, using this stuff, and exactly, cinesemiotics. But like this is why it was a good call like to read this paper. I'd like to see someone do it better than I could. But like again, the reasons I didn't continue, or maybe the reasons why Aristotle is having a problem with the paper, is because it was just too hard to put together from like my perspective, but someone else was willing to put the time in. All right, one sec. Let me just try and see something. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so that's very strange. All right. Okay. Anywho, transformations are hard to inspire. Two obstacles stand in the way. First, we do not know what we are getting ourselves into when approaching a transformation. Because we have not had the relevant experience before, we do not know what it would be like to have it. As such, we cannot tell whether the experience would appeal to us. Moreover, because we cannot tell whether it would appeal to us, we have no way of weighing it against other options. We cannot judge whether a pursuit would be wiser than evasion. Call this the cognitive obstacle to motivating transformations. Okay, to be fair about this, it's like anything we do has like, well, we don't know if it's actually going to matter. Stupid thing work, damn it. So, like, anything we do, but like if we're going to do something new, yeah, maybe we have to get over a hump. Okay. Second, suppose, per impossibile, we discovered what life would be like on the other side on a transformation. We cannot just assign a subjective value to this outcome and proceed accordingly, for we will not always think about the matter as we do now. The transformation will change our core preferences, so our future selves may reject the value judgments our present selves endorse. So the idea is that like being a mother may make you reconsider things that you think about when you're single. So even if you knew what it was like to be a mother, you may value the world differently once you become a mother. And so even if you knew what it was like, it doesn't mean that you just know, you have to experience it, and so that means you experience it differently. Okay, our opinion of the transformation could change in several ways. First, we might view the transformation positively now, but negatively later. We might come to oppose what the transformative experience has to offer, even though it appeals to us at present. If we knew such an infelicitous change would occur, our motivations to pursue the transformation would likely diminish, for we rarely want to do something we know we will ultimately dislike. Second, we might regard the transformation negatively now, but positively later. The transformation might alter our preferences in such a way that they come to align with what the experience has to offer. Yet this is not enough to motivate us to pursue the transformation. For we must want to have these new preferences, and we might not. Paul uses the following example to make the point. Suppose there was a drug that would make you less intelligent. As a side effect, though, it would make you enjoy being less intelligent. So yeah, like, ignorance is bliss. So there was a drug that would make you dumber but happier. It would induce a blissfully ignorant state. Is this rosy outcome reason enough to take the drug? No, for you might not want to become the kind of person who enjoys being less intelligent. I'm interested in scenarios like this drug case, one where we do not currently like what the new experience promises us. Such scenarios capture the second obstacle to motivating transformations. How can something such as a work of art get us to like what we do not like? Moreover, how can it get us to want to like what we do not want to like? Call this the conative obstacle to motivating transformations. Here is an example adapted from Paul that illustrates how the two motivational obstacles work together. Olivia is trying to decide whether to have children. Currently, she is against it. She does not see what is so great about being a parent. All the mothers she knows appear stressed, frustrated, and exhausted. None of that sounds appealing. Plus, if she has children, her career must take a back seat, and she may have less time for her hobbies. Olivia's friends reassure her that things will change once she has a child. She will gain a newfound appreciation for familial bonds and come to love her parental responsibilities. Spending time with her child will be worth what she gives up in exchange. Yet, Olivia does not know whether to trust her friend's prediction. Although it might reflect their experiences, hers could be different. Not all mothers enjoy motherhood after all. Besides, Olivia is ill-disposed towards the activities her friends described. Spending time with children does not top her priority list, nor does she want to become the kind of person for whom it does. Thus, even when she envisions a rosy future with smiling children by her side, the scene does not move her. It does not make her want to become a parent. How then can art inspire transformations? How can it overcome the cognitive and conative obstacles standing in the way? The answer lies in the details of how each obstacle arises. Thus, in sections 2 to 3, I will focus on the details of the cognitive obstacle. Then, in sections 4 to 6, I will turn to the details of the conative obstacles. In Section 7.8, I will present a concrete example of a transformation inspired by a work of art. Finally, I will end the paper in Section 9 with some concluding remarks about the dangers of art's transformative power. Okay, so we're on page 3 now, page 4 of 21. This is going to be huge. All right, we got to get to page 17. This is going to be a slog here. But as always, please ask questions along the way. I'm going to find out about this, and we'll see. Like, do you want to become a parent, and what will that do to you? We don't know. Okay, before making a decision, we often want to know what it would be like to embrace a particular option. Yes, selling semiotics, that'd be easier said than done. Tell them what you're going to tell them, conclude by telling them what you told them. Yeah. Would we enjoy it or not? Would it bring us happiness or the opposite? To answer these questions, we often attempt to explore the scenario in our minds. We try to imaginatively project or forecast what we think, feel, or would or want were we to inhabit it. Our imaginative abilities have limits, though. According to a well-known dogma, we cannot imagine what it would be like to go through something if we have not gone through something like it before. Antonia Peacock calls this the experiential weird word, experiential constraint, and it is the fons de origo of the cognitive obstacle. To decide whether to pursue a transformative experience, we need to imagine what it would be like to go through it, but since transformative experience is by definition one we have not had before, we are unable to do so. Peacock and others claim art can help us to overcome the experiential constraint. Just as notebooks and planners can aid our memories, so too works of art can aid our imaginations. They are cognitive prostheses capable of augmenting our native abilities in this domain. In particular, art can help us imagine what it is like to have experiences we ourselves have not had before. One way it can do so is by providing us with simulated versions of other people's experiences. Art can transport us into their worlds, so to speak. It can get us to take on their thoughts, feelings, and desires and learn what it is like for them to face their circumstances and make their decisions. Yes, cinesemiotics, I feel that. Yeah. Well, they're trying at least, which is better than some philosophers who just have like terrible prose and they're not even trying. So, I'm trying to think if there's a good reason for saying that. Like, there's like theories in philosophy of mind who say using things like notebooks are part of our mind, and so they kind of talk about prosthetics, but it's really not worth it here. But they, it's okay. It's not the worst thing. Yes. Okay. The point here is like, look, if you want to learn something about war, maybe you can go read a book about war, and then you might understand something about war that you did not understand beforehand. Now, will you understand everything about being what it's like to be on the battlefield? No. Might you understand more than you did in the past? Yes. And so it's like, well, can you get something from like a work of fiction, but like a good work of fiction about like being at war? Maybe. It's like, what was that movie, Saving Private Ryan, that like battlefield scene at the beginning on D-Day? Like, do you get the feeling of like being in like bullets flying all around? Maybe that does give you something. I don't know. But like, could it help you to understand what it's like being in one of those battles? Possibly. And that makes some sense. Okay. Support for this position comes from statements made by art creators and art appreciators. Artists often say they seek to convey knowledge of what a particular experience is like, and consumers of their work often say they receive such knowledge. Indeed, people who have had particular experiences sometimes claim that a given work of art captures it. In other words, those who know firsthand what it feels like to undergo a particular experience and thus are in a position to judge whether a given artwork conveys this knowledge sometimes affirms that it does. Yeah, well, like I said, this is not a... Oh, it says the exact... Ha. You're right, it did say that. I didn't get there yet. Some veterans maintain that the opening of Saving Private Ryan captures a feeling of being at war. Michael K. Williams, the actor who played Omar Little in The Wire, says the television series gave his expression to his own experiences growing up in the violent, gang-ridden drug-ridden slums of Baltimore. Discounting this testimony would require a compelling error theory. Well, sometimes I get stuff right. It's very rare. Paul has some sympathy for this line of thought, but she denies that art can give us what we need when it comes to transformative experiences. She offers a couple of reasons for this denial. First, transformative experiences are defined as being epistemically inaccessible. Now, you got to worry about people who do this. She's defining herself as being what she says is not being what other people are saying. Now, why is she saying that? Well, if she's saying it because it's defined as that way, that's not actually convincing. That's just a definition, and I can define whatever the fuck I want. But, like, that's just an interesting thing. Like, so that's just one question. Defining yourself out of the problem is not a solution. It's just a description of what you're doing. Okay, it is part of what it is for an experience to be transformative that we do not know what it would be like to go through it. So if a work of art gives us knowledge of what a particular experience would be like, then that experience ceases to qualify as transformative. The upshot is that, by definition, art cannot help us imagine transformative experiences. It can only shrink their domain. Paul's second argument is that works of art give us the wrong kind of knowledge. At best, they reveal what it is like for some other fictional person to have the relevant experience, but that is not what we need when deciding whether to undergo the experience. We need to know what it would be like for us, and there is no guarantee things will go for us as they do for other people, fictional or not. Our mental apparatus may process things differently. Yeah, but again, this is, I'm sure the author is going to talk about this here, but like this sort of thing is like, what do you mean for us versus other people? This goes back to things like, is my pain different from your pain? Like, you can't experience my pain, I can't experience your pain, but like, does that mean pain is somehow like, you tell me you're in pain, I can't experience it, but like, that doesn't mean that like our descriptions actually don't line up. And so like when you write something like a pain that you've experienced, maybe I can imagine that because like, I've had something similar like that before, and then you can show me how to get from where I am to where you are. Now, of course, will this be exactly what happens when I undergo a similar experience? Well, I don't know, but again, that puts us back up into this area. Are you defining yourself out of the problem? And we don't know that. Now, is there a chance that there is no way to actually understand something? Yes, but we have to be careful here. Just saying these things does not actually guarantee that they're in any way inaccessible. Now, they might be, but we can't tell that, and defining that is just descriptive. It does not actually tell us that's how the world is. So, I mean, there's something very questionable about this. And you also have to worry about people who do this sort of thing in philosophy. A lot of times they want to make it sound like they're doing something fancy and new, and so they'll make this sort of move to just make what they're doing sound impressive. The ultimate example is the first orgasm. Yeah, like, so it's like the whole virgin thing. Like, oh, you don't know what it is to have sex, you don't know what it is to have an orgasm. It's like, yes, but like, I mean, could you have like some sort of transformative, like maybe drug-induced sort of feeling that you're so happy? It's like, yeah, that would be a good example. So yeah. No, that's a good point. Cinesemiotics is like a good example. Now, could it be inaccessible? Yes. Is that inaccessible? Perhaps. I mean, I don't remember that far back. But, yeah, so it's the same thing. But it's like, what is, like, someone else's pain or someone else's orgasm so different? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, and could someone, like, if you had something similar, could you jump the gap between, like, one experience and a similar experience? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. The seductive power of art. There's more to say about this matter, but let's suppose Paul's arguments succeed. Yeah, this is what I figured. The author is just, let's grant this as a thing. It remains the case that our art often feels like a helpful guide. We are often inclined to believe the things will go for us as they do for the character we encounter in movies, songs, and novels. If this conviction is unjustified, why do we embrace it so readily? On my account, motivated reasoning is partly to blame. We believe because we want to believe, and we want to believe because we get seduced by the power of art. How does art seduce us? The answer has to do with an unfortunate fact about forecasting. Although we may have the potential to be good at it, we tend to be bad at it. We tend not we are not bad at it because we guess randomly. We are bad at it because we forecast idyllic responses. We imagine how we want things to go rather than how they actually will go. Works of art feed into this tendency, for they make us want things to go how they depict things as going. Is that fair? Like, I wonder if the author's just setting us up here. Do we actually think of rosy futures and that's how we think of it? Or are some of us kind of like, but I mean, all the pessimists do not think that way. Oh, and what the fun things about it was, people who are depressed tend to have a more accurate view of the world than people who are not depressed, I think. They're like a more specific and like they have a more accurate view. Actually, what was the actual thing? There was a study that showed that people who are pessimists or depressed or something like that, not the optimists, they tend to be more accurate in the way they describe the world. And so they're more realistic. And so in some sense, there are a huge group of people that are not forecasting idyllic responses. So this may be the case that like some people forecast idyllic responses, but I don't know actually what the numbers are that do this. Now, granted, the author here has given a bunch of references, but as far as I know, this is not universal. Aristotle says, they don't have a biasing mechanisms that help us to remember things more positively. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. Maybe it's a question of memory that like you don't have rosy glasses on. Okay. Like, I don't usually ever experience nostalgia. Very rarely. I don't have rosy glasses for the past. So it's like the idea that like I'm thinking about things in the past as like better than they were. I don't think so. And I don't think things were very good in the past. So it's like I'm not depressed about it. It's just I'm not looking back and thinking, oh, things were great. They weren't great. They were basically as they are now, just as stupid and shitty as things ever were. So, I mean, that with the good, of course. Okay, Mathin on aesthetic pleasure. There's Mohan Mathin. I've read Mohan Mathin before. Guy does a philosophy of biology, too. There are many ways to tell this part of the story, but one fruitful strategy is to draw on Mohan Mathin's account of aesthetic pleasure. I will develop this strategy in some detail, as it will play a crucial role in the paper as well. Mathin 2017 describes aesthetic pleasure as facilitating pleasure. This means that it is activating and active and self-reinforcing. Aesthetic pleasure motivates us to continue the activity that gave rise to it. To use an example from the natural world, when we see a pretty bird, we want to follow it and see it again. Is that really? Oh, whatever. Okay, if they say so. I wouldn't say we want to see a pretty bird and go follow that bird. We like the experience of seeing new beauty, like seeing new pretty birds. Because if we keep following the same pretty bird, we're going to get bored with it. And so the idea, I think that phenomena is just like, that's confused right there already. It's like, we are not like just seeing a pretty bird. Now, granted, there may be paintings that you can stare at for any given amount of time. Maybe there's like, you have a model on your wall and you just sort of like stare at that like you're, in the Shawshank Redemption, and you're staring at like some gorgeous person. So, yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, this is a weird example right here. Like, this is strange. So, but that's the thing. Thank the host, yeah. That's a good call, though, synesemiotics. Okay, but like, so there's already something weird about this example. But we can grant that, if you like something that's beautiful, you might go back to it. Okay, aesthetic pleasures are active in another way too. They engage a nexus of mental and bodily preparations that ease and optimize the activities that gave rise to them. In other words, they facilitate the pleasure-generating activities so as to maximize the pleasure they afford. Well, yeah, you get all hyped up for it, and that might help you out. So it is that after spotting our pretty bird, we may try to look at it more closely or from a better angle. This is a weird way of describing like what's going on when you look at the pretty bird, but okay. But like, you can get all hyped up for it and like try to do more, learn more about it. That's fair. The facilitating nexus is specific. It motivates pursuit of the pleasure-generating activity and no other. But we must not interpret this point too narrowly. The pleasure of looking at a pretty bird does not just lead us to continue looking at that specific bird, it also leads us to engage in ancillary activities that support and extend our bird watching. For example, we may remember the bird after it has disappeared from sight, or imagine it flying away to its nest. We may talk about the bird with our friends when we get home, or research how to locate it in the future. To this list, we can add making copies of the bird, as in photographing or drawing it. All these are ways of optimizing and extending the pleasure of the original act of bird watching. See, this is weird. Is like bird watching like facilitate bird drawing? I don't know if that's like a normal path for people to do it. And also, people have hobbies and they get into their hobbies. But now, being part of the hobby is that going specifically to facilitate the bird watching, or do you like actually getting involved in the hobby because there's a lot of stuff to learn, and then like you get to have all these toys, you get all like this stuff, and like that might be a good in itself, but is that directly in order to do the bird watching? I'm not so sure. Family Guy chicken fight can't get out of your head. It's funny. Okay, so I'm just, there's other ways to interpret this stuff. I'm really not certain that like this is a good idea of what they're saying, but I'm not even sure. Yeah, it's not even nowhere near transformative. That's fair, but like I think they're setting stuff up at the moment. So we'll see where they go with this. Okay, aesthetic pleasure functions the same way in the case of viewing works of art. It moves us to perpetuate the activity that gave rise to it and to do things that optimize this activity. When we notice a beautiful painting in a museum, for example, we may approach it and study it more carefully. We may also discuss it with a tour guide or read the informational placard on the wall. The pleasure afforded by contemplating a work of art may also inspire copying. Witness the mass taking of pictures of museum masterpieces and posting them to Instagram. We copy in other ways too, such as by imitating. After encountering a striking Twombly, for instance, I may try my own hand at abstracts. Twombly, yeah. So like, yeah, you might be inspired to like paint something in the style of one of the masters because you think it's cool for whatever reason. And that's fair. People do that. Okay, the case of representational art. Representational art is a special case. There is a twofoldness to viewing it. We see the physical aspects of the work, the paint strokes, etc., and we also see what those physical aspects represent. Either one can generate pleasure and activate an associated facilitating nexus. When focusing on the physical aspects of Degas' dancer paintings, for example, the delicacy of his pastel work may spark an urge to imitate his style in our own painting practice. But by contrast, when attending to the dancers depicted in the paintings, we may imagine what it would be like to be those dancers, or find ourselves wishing we could move as gracefully as they did. What's funny about this is Degas specifically painted the dancers backstage when they were doing stuff that wasn't dancing to break down the idea that they actually were these graceful things. So this is the dancers are actually usually not moving gracefully in Degas' paintings. So this author, I think, has the interpretation a little bit funky, which is kind of funny. Okay, think also of a reaction to advertisements. Seeing a glossy ad of a smoker may make us want to produce our own such ads. Really? Like advertisements make you want to make ads? Yeah, so many philosophers of art are insufferably and predictably pretentious. Shane, what's up? Might, can. Are we just arguing for the possibility? Yeah, this is this person's being exceedingly careful on some of their stuff. I'm gonna try to shout you out. I don't know if my stream deck is working at the moment, but if anyone here does not know Shane is a fantastic historian and sociologist, teaches at the university level, and yeah, everyone should go. If you have any questions about world history, you can just go ask Shane on his channel, and you will get a nice answer, and you will be able to understand more about how we ended up and how the world has ended up the way it is, and learn something about our world. And it's very cool, and it's always worth your time to just go lurk if you're not even gonna go talk, which mostly is what I do, because I only have snark at this point. I don't have any questions. But yeah, but everyone should go check out Shane. We've been fucking it up since the get-go. That's one of the problems with this. Like, this person has a view of the world that, like, oh yeah, let's go. They're talking about Degas here. By contrast, when attending to the dancers depicted in painting, we may imagine what it would be like to be those dancers and find ourselves be as gracefully as they did. Degas never painted them as graceful. He never did. That was the point. Degas was kind of misogynistic. He wanted to show women as not graceful. So it's like, we've been fucking this up since right here, 2 paragraphs ago. No, 1 paragraph ago. We're only on this. And seeing a glossy ad of a smoker may make us want to produce our own such ads. Really? Like, I've never wanted to get into advertising because I saw a cool ad. That has never ever happened. Maybe it happens to people who are interested in it, but like, seriously? Like, that's weird. But it may also move us to become smokers. Yeah, advertising does work. Okay, television shows have a similar effect. Upon watching a rousing drama, we may want to become the directors of dramas. Yeah, people do see art they like and want to make it their own. That's fair. But we may also want to imitate the characters depicted in the drama to style our hair or dress as they do. Yeah, if you see something cool, you might be like, yo, I'm going to do that too. Aim for less wrong, that's all. I forget what there's something just called Less Wrong out there. Is it a blog or is it a show or something? But like, yeah, I think that was their goal. Okay. It is not only the physical appearance of a character that may appeal to us. Oh, Shane says, Shane was watching a Yale professor give a lecture on a YouTube video this morning. She was arguing that we should think of all humans as equally grievable. And I was pretty okay with the lecture until she started quoting Kant and went about him for a good 5 minutes. Yeah, again, she's probably not a philosophy professor. She was probably just thought Kant had a good way of thinking about things, but yeah, don't talk about Kant. If you want to like talk about decent people, Kant's just an ass. But yeah, whatevers. What are you gonna do? That's disappointing. Anywho, Kant is so disappointing. It's okay. Let's see. It is not only the physical appearance of a character that may appeal to us, we may take pleasure in the way of life and want to repeat it as well. Consider our engagement with literature. We pick up the Red-Headed League and delight in Doyle's Holmes. We may prolong this pleasure by daydreaming about him or writing fan fiction. And of course, like Sherlock Holmes. That's what they're talking about here. We may also find ourselves imagining what it would be like to be Sherlock, to live and think how he does. We may even try to become versions of the great detective ourselves. We may go around for a day solving mysteries and reasoning deductively. Yeah, this is always annoying. Like, I hear people talk about, like, oh, like, what's logical and what isn't. Motherfucker, you have no idea. Like, most people out there have no fucking clue what deductive logic is. Like, I'm sorry. They don't. And then they say, oh, this is logical. It's like, no, just don't even say that. I got into an argument with my brother a while back. He was trying to tell me something that I was being, not objective. And then I was like, what do you think objective means? And like, he was telling me, I'm like, that's not what objective means. Like this is just not what like objective reasoning is. You might write an angry comment. This will show her, because social media has taught me that my individual voice carries as much weight as hers, since our opinions would appear in the same forum. Yeah, that's definitely the mature thing to do. Writing angry comments online. You know, I mean, if you're going to I wouldn't try to argue with Kantians. It's just not going to be worth your time, Shane. Like, that's just the nature of the sociology of Kantians. They're not actually listening to rational discussion. They're looking to derive their actions from rules, and arguing with them is not going to actually change anything, because they're going to be using a rule-based system, and it just means whatever they want it to mean. So, but I mean, maybe you'll help someone in the crowd like that's reading it, but you're not going to change her. Philosophers are pig-headed, like hard-headed things. They're not changing shit. And I think you know that. Okay, implications for forecasting. Let us return to the issue with which this section began. I said we often imagine things will go for us as they do for the characters we encounter in works of art. An explanation is now at hand. We often take pleasure in contemplating a character's way of life, and we often want to extend this pleasure by copying copying that way of life. We want to be who we see. This desire shapes our forecasts about our future selves, for again, we tend to forecast what we want to happen rather than what will actually happen. See, this is like the author, I think, projecting here. Like, what the fuck? You think I'm delusional enough to think that, like, I want to be a famous basketball player, so I'm going to model my life after Michael Jordan, and my life will then, therefore, be like Michael Jordan? Like, I'm not that delusional. I'm really not. Now, might I be able to do something like someone else and maybe get a little bit like that? Possibly, but like, I'm not like that delusional to think that somehow I'm gonna be able to, by emulating someone else, I'm actually gonna have their success. Like, really. Stupid thing is acting weird. Okay. She's cribbing Irving Goffman and Charles Cooley. Oh, I don't know that stuff, but that's interesting. Okay, here's an example that ties these points together. Think about Bradley Cooper's rendition of A Star is Born. The dramatic narrative arc of Allie's character, played by Lady Gaga, brings us pleasure and draws us in. We may find ourselves wanting what happens to Allie to happen to us. We may wish for our creative musical talents to be discovered and to have a run of fame. We may desire to find celebrity romance, win legions of fans, receive critical accolades, and the rest. These yens may influence how we imagine things going if we decide to become a singer-songwriter or start our own band. We may fall prey to the romantic notion that our lives will unfold as magically as Allie's does. To summarize, on my view, art is not some great guide to the truth. It does not reveal what life would be like for us on the other side of a transformation. It just gets us to think that it does. Of course, this is less an overcoming than a sidestepping of the cognitive obstacle, but it is enough for my purposes. I hold that art can motivate transformations. This implies that art can provide us with reasons to undergo them, but not necessarily good or normative reasons. In fact, art rarely, if ever, gives us such reasons. On a standard internalist account, we have a good or normative reason to do something only if we have that reason from an unimpaired cognitive state. This means the reason cannot be a function of false or unjustified beliefs, but that is what happens when a work of art inspires a transformation. It seduces us into thinking we know what it would be like for us on the other side of a transformation when we in fact do not know. And this unjustified forecast is integral to why we pursue the transformation. I just find this whole section delusional. Like, you're going to delude yourself thinking you're going to be a famous artist, like a famous singer. Like, is that what we think when we watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, America's Got Talent, or one of these talent shows? Like, yeah, some people think that, but like most people, I don't think so. Aristotle says, this thesis is excessively weak. There is at least one case, conceivable or actual, where art can inspire transformation as opposed to actually transforming someone. You can't really believe this was published in, JAPA, is like a well-regarded journal. You know, again, yeah, she just argued for the hopes of the existence of a tautology. I'm really just hoping that this is all set up, and I actually think that's what this is at the moment. This is really just trying to get a little bit of groundwork done. Clear as potato throat. Go for it, Lumpy. But this unfortunately is not that, in my opinion, is not that bad. This is just long-winded. This could have all been done in one, the last 4 pages or 3 pages could have all been done in 1.5 pages or 1 page, and that's fine. Have a good lurk, Shane. But actually, I'm less angry. I'm just angry about the time spent reading it, but not about what they're saying. It's all fine. It's all just very minimal. We still got a lot of space to go in this paper. Okay, the cognitive obstacle. I've spent the last 2 sections discussing the cognitive obstacle to motivating transformations. The next 3 sections, oh God. I will turn to the cognitive obstacle. It might seem as though this turn is unnecessary, for it might seem as though doing away with the cognitive obstacle is enough. I admit there are times when this is true. In some cases, the only thing holding us back from pursuing a new experience is a failure to grasp what it has to offer. Yeah, it's like if I tell you something's going to be fun and I don't see why it's going to be fun and you don't see why it's going to be fun, that might be enough to get you not to do it. We are so disposed that we would pursue it if we knew more about it or thought we did. Here's an example. French cooking. 1. Suppose you have never tried your hand at French cooking. On the few occasions you had the chance, you declined. It did not seem like the sort of thing you would enjoy. But one day you see a documentary about French cooking that opens your eyes. You realize that you had many misconceptions about the practice. Now you know more. You think you would like it after all. It is exactly the sort of thing that excites you, so you may make an attempt at French cooking the next opportunity you get. A streamer I watch, Mr. Llama SC, he loves skiing, but like this is the exact sort of thing that happened to him. His friend says, "You're gonna like skiing." He says, "I can't see in any world where I would like skiing," but like they were going on a skiing trip, so he's like, "I will come along." And the first 2 days he hates it. On the third day, like something clicked, and now he loves skiing. It's like he's told the story on stream, but it's like this is exactly the sort of thing. So this is fair. He didn't believe him. He was a grumpy llama and dragged himself along, and then on the third day something clicked and he just completely loves skiing now. It's like, okay, this happens. Okay. Author says, I wish to focus on cases that are different from French cooking 1. The ones that interest me have the added feature of being personally transformative in Paul's sense. Undergoing the experience at stake alters our preferences. It results in our liking different things than we did before. These changes can go in several directions. One possibility is that what the experience has to offer aligns with our current preferences, but will not align with our future ones. In other words, the experience is attractive to us prior to undergoing it. Yeah, it's like, so you might think like skiing is going to be fun, and then you do it and you break your leg and you're just angry. Lumpy says, and from an outsider point of view, I fail to see the point of this paper. Art can inspire the stuff in the viewer. Yeah, they teach you that in kindergarten. Yes. I am with you here. I'm just hoping that we're on page 8 of 21 right now. And I'm hoping that something else happens in the next 8 pages, before the conclusion. So I don't see anything yet that is of any interest, but we're going to find out. And I'm hoping this person will get somewhere. Okay. The experience is attractive to us prior to undergoing it. So you think something is good. You'll be in bed before that. Yeah, well, feel free. This person has not inspired, faith in their abilities, their philosophical abilities yet. And I think everyone else in chat has been giving them shit for it, even though I'm still holding out a little bit of hope. Maybe that's just because I've got sunk cost fallacy going on. Like I already committed to reading this, and now I have to hope it turns out better. We'll find out. But upon undergoing it, we will come to hate it. A second possibility is that what the experience has to offer will align with our future preferences, but does not align with our current ones. So it's like, yeah. So Llama thought he would hate skiing, found out he did not do it. He did not hate skiing. He loves skiing. That is, when we actually undergo the experience, we will enjoy it, at least eventually. At present, though, we do not find it appealing. Moreover, we do not aspire to become the kind of person who does find it appealing. So this is the example, could you become an aesthetic monk? It sounds terrible. You don't get any food, you don't get any clothes, you don't have a house, but maybe you would actually love being a monk living out in the forest. Who knows? Author will restrict their attention to the second of these two scenarios to illustrate the problem it creates. Consider another example. French cooking 2. Consider you attempted French cooking once before and you did not like it, yet you know you tend to get into hobbies and you suspect if you dedicate yourself to French cooking, you would come to enjoy it. Such is your track record with other artistic endeavors. However, you do not want to become the kind of person who likes French cooking. It reminds you too much of your college nemesis who had a passion for that particular culinary art. So you keep on avoiding French cooking. Unlike French cooking 1, knowledge is not the issue in French cooking 2. In this latter example, learning more about French cooking will not motivate you to try it, for your dislike of French cooking is not grounded in ignorance. It is part of your personality. So the only way the way forward is to change this part of your personality. But you do not want to change this part of your personality. You want to remain who you are. Yes, you want to be an asshole still angry at somebody from college. I mean, seriously, but okay. That's the point here. Okay, extrinsic motivations. Only extrinsic considerations such as rewards or punishments can help in such scenarios. Yeah, so if you want to change, but someone will have to incentivize it for you. That's fine. Since we are not drawn to the experience itself, only something external to it can get us to pursue it. The extrinsic considerations cannot be just any old thing, though. It has to speak to our current preferences. It has to entice us as we are prior to being changed by the transformative experience. In addition, the reward or punishment must be of sufficient magnitude to outweigh our dislike for the experience. If our aversion to the experience is intense, something minor will fail to move us. There may even be cases where no extrinsic factor is weighty enough. Extrinsic considerations merely initiate the transformation process. They do not actually transform us. Okay, so this is the drug dealer has to give you the free sample in order to get you to do it. You might think, I don't want to try that drug, but if they're giving it away for free and like they're like throwing in like an extra party or whatever, then maybe I will like it. So this is like you have to give someone like you have to build an audience in some sense for certain things. Okay. Shane says, but art can be transformative unless it can't be. But when it can't be, it's because you don't want it to be transformative, because it is only transformative if you want it to be transformative and therefore without any agency of its own. So it's not transformative. Oh shit, I've disproved my own thesis. Such is life when doing philosophy sometimes. You find out you disagree with what you thought you were going to. Yeah, some people need to be dragged kicking and screaming. Sometimes it just happens, like you do stuff like you see something and like people start crying. It's like the old this is what the example is. Pretty Woman, where you bring someone who might not love opera to the opera, and then you start crying like they love opera. Oh my god. And so like they would not have gone to opera except that is actually her own argument. What she wants, what they want to say is that they were defining themselves at this stuff. So they're defining themselves into making it so that it's always going to be out of reach. So yeah, but that's sort of weird. And yes, Shane, you're right. I'm trying to say something like I'm trying to do this person a favor to save what they're saying, but it's probably not worth it at this point. But they understand that they've granted. Oh, here's what I want to say. They've granted the original author, who's L.A. Paul, not this author here, that art can be like this. But like that there are things that will prevent you understanding what it will be like to undergo a transformative change. So in some sense, they are trying to talk about something that they've already granted one of the other authors in this area. And so this is why nothing's happening here. They're just sort of treading water. So they haven't said anything yet. I'm still waiting. But didn't Paul say art couldn't do transformations? I thought she was more restrictive in her cases. Yeah, that's exactly the problem here. Paul isn't saying it, and then this person's trying to talk around it to like build up some sort of, momentum for when they actually do say something. The problem here is they haven't said anything yet, and so it's like but like this is the whole I think they're trying to get themselves some momentum going here. And I think that's what is actually structurally happening in this paper. They've already granted Paul that art, it can't be transformative in this way, but then they're talking about all the stuff that sort of gets it close. It still doesn't do it because they've granted Paul the thesis, but I think then they're going to disagree in like, another 4 pages or something and say, I also, this is what I think, and I disagree, and hopefully Nick Riggle's going to make an appearance because they said Nick Riggle's coming back, and so that is where I think the paper's going. But it's just taking a long and painful time to get there. So, this is why Shane, you're right. Aristotle, you're right. I'm just saying, I think that's how the arc of the paper is going. And they haven't yet, and we'll see if I'm right about this. Okay. Rather, extrinsic considerations just motivate us to undergo the experience, and it is undergoing the experience that transforms us. To use an old metaphor, an extrinsic consideration is a ladder we climb up and then kick it away. It brings us to the point where we no longer need it as a motivation because we have come to enjoy the experience for its own sake. This is the old walking through the door in the Matrix. Morpheus can't make Neo walk through the door to understand what it is to understand the Matrix. Neo has to do it himself. And then once you understand it, you no longer can go back. You can't kick the ladder away. Okay. Here's a third example to illustrate the idea. Do we need a third example? No, but here it is. French cooking 3. As before, suppose you do not currently like French cooking, but you know you would come to like it if you threw yourself at it. Shane predicts that at the end of the paper is going to be, transformation is not a binary or dichotomous situation. Things like art can be sort of transformative, and no attention will be paid to the definition of transformation. I fear you are right, Shane, but I'm hoping that's not what gets said, because at least Nick Riggle has to come back. They said Nick Riggle was coming back, and I like Nick Riggle. So, okay, so you know you like French cooking if you tried it as a hobby. That is how you are wired. However, you do not want to become the kind of person who likes French cooking. It reminds you too much of your college nemesis, so you have never taken it up as a hobby. Then one day you meet a boy who is into French cooking. You find yourself attracted to him and look for ways to forge a connection. Setting your hang-ups aside, you decide to sign up for a French cooking class with him. Things do not work out with the boy, but you end up sticking with the class. In fact, you go to enough sessions that your preferences change. You come to enjoy making ratatouille and beef bourguignon just as you suspected you would. Lumpy, thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming around. I'm sorry this paper frustrated everyone, but it's interesting, but we just haven't gotten anywhere yet. But thank you again for being here. I appreciate your thoughts, and I wish you luck with your dialectic. You don't believe Riggle is coming back? I think you're misreading the prophecy in order to stir up messianic hopes and attempt to resist the current structure. I think you nailed it, Shane. I'm sorry, I'm just lying. It'd be so disappointing if Riggle makes only a one-line comeback and there's nothing else to it. What was it? Oh, here's a good example, actually. Here's a better example. My grandma did not like my uncle's girlfriend. This is many years ago. My grandma did not like my uncle's girlfriend. They were together for years. And my grandma and the girlfriend had to work very hard to get along with each other. Then my uncle broke up with his girlfriend. But they had put so much time and effort into making friends that they stayed friends. That my grandma and my uncle's ex-girlfriend stayed friends, and they were friends for basically the rest of their lives. And so this is one of those things. They changed themselves. They found ways to, get along with each other, and that lasted for the rest of their lives, that they remained friends. So it's you can do this. This is a thing that can be done. They transformed themselves out of the stake of both liking my uncle, that they got along, and then once my uncle stopped and this lady stopped being involved, everyone stayed on my uncle was not transformative, no. But no, they transformed themselves for the sake of my uncle. They found ways to get along. My uncle wasn't the transformative one. Hell, if anything, he has not changed an iota. He's the same old curmudgeon he's always been. My uncle is the definition, Shane. I don't think I've talked about him before, but yeah, no. I've talked about him on air before. My uncle is the epitome of the evil public service person, working for the government. Oh, you didn't fill out the proper form, 13B 7C. You have to go do that before I'll help you. Goodbye. Click. Good. So he used to do investigations for the state of California, where you'd have to have all the I's dotted, T's crossed, all sorts of things. Yeah, complete malicious compliance. And and so he's this the evil public servant. He was one of them. But he was good at his job, and everyone was kind of happy with his work, but people would go to help him and he's I can't help you. So yeah. Oh yeah, you'll like Nick Riggle. Nick Riggle is actually cool. Nick Riggle is a cool person. His philosophy's cool. Everything he does is he's a good guy. So yeah. And he wrote this book, and it's a pop book, and it's very popular and it's good. And yeah, it's about varieties of awesomeness or something. I forget what it is. So it's how different people are awesome in different ways. And it's so it's an aesthetic theory of not beauty, but like other aesthetic goals. So it's like being awesome is a sort of aesthetic goal, and I completely recommend everyone go check out some of his popular works because they're high quality. They're very entertaining, and like people like them, and they're philosophically, as far as I understand, well regarded. As you can see, it's referenced in this rather pedantic paper. Okay. Habituation. How does this transformation occur? How does engaging in French cooking or anything else lead us to develop an affinity for it when previously we had an aversion to it? This is something of a mystery. This is annoying. It's magic. It's basically what they're saying here. But one possible explanation lies in Aristotle's theory of habituation. On Aristotle's view, if we use rewards and punishments to get children to develop the habit of engaging in some noble activity, they will come to care about that noble activity for its own sake. Aristotle's point does not just hold for children and noble activities, though it generalizes. If extrinsic considerations get any of us to pursue any undertaking for long enough, we will wind up valuing it for its own sake. This is patently false, but it does work sometimes. Like the idea that we will wind up valuing anything for its own sake after being forced into it. I mean, yeah, like some people have been forced into like religion and they hate religion to like the pit of their soul. So like this is just false, but it does happen sometimes. If, people do something enough, sometimes they do like it. Okay, habituation does not always work. Of course, sometimes the more we do something, the more we do something, the more we care about it, but sometimes not. Sometimes the more we do something, the more we hate it. Okay, fair enough. Author knew this. In such cases, extrinsic considerations will not bring about a transformation. They will push us away from the activity or experience in question. Indeed, extrinsic motivations can be the source of the problem. They can undermine or crowd out the development of intrinsic motivations rather than enable it. Habituation also does not explain every case. It is particularly ill-suited to account for sudden transformations such as religious conversions. For habituation takes time, whereas conversions happen quickly, even instantaneously. I lack a satisfying account of the mechanism at play in such cases, but this lacuna is not troubling, for I do not seek to explain every mechanism by which transformation occurs. Art as motivator. What does art have to do with this story? Okay, finally we're getting somewhere. What does art have to do with this story? Beautiful artistic representations can serve the same function as rewards and punishments. Oh god, they're going to use that shitty bird story from above. Okay, they can draw us toward an experience and motivate us to pursue it, even if we are not attracted to the experience itself. We can return to Mathen for an explanation. A beautiful representation of an experience generates pleasurable sensations in us. What the fuck is a beautiful representation of an experience? Seriously. What the fuck is that? I don't even know what that means. Like, I can make something up, but I don't feel like fixing this fucking author's shitty argumentation at this point. Look, you can love sports because you can see the beauty in human motion. But is that a representation? No, that is the experience. You can see the experience. And maybe you can argue that you might want to play the sport because you think it's beautiful or gorgeous or something like that. But what the fuck is a beautiful representation of an experience? Filming myself having an orgasm using really nice lighting and a good camera. Exactly, Shane. Is this what the fuck they're talking about? Like, really? That's what it is? No. Okay. Delight in these pleasures prompts us to return to their source and to deepen our engagement with it. We want to see more representations of the experience and perhaps even to undergo it. As Elaine Scarry puts it, beauty begets repetition both in the world and in ourselves. Well, you could say, look, if you really like, say, soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, whatever part of the world you're in, it's often called like a beautiful sport, and maybe like seeing a grand picture of like a soccer game might inspire you to want to understand more about soccer and like play it. So like, the famous like boxing photo of like Muhammad Ali knocking out Frazier or whatever, maybe that would inspire you to get into boxing, like possibly. And that would be a beautiful representation of an experience where like you see like one scene of like Muhammad Ali and that like with that like fucking like a powerful vision of like a powerful view, and maybe that could make you want to deepen your engagement with boxing or something similar with like soccer, something like that. But like it's weird. That's the question to Marshall. No, exactly. This makes no fucking sense what they're saying, and that's my complaint. Like, it doesn't, like, the representation, like, what are they talking about? Like, I'm not, like, I don't understand what the target of their, what their reference is here. What are they talking about? Like, the representation of the sport? Like, the abstract representation of the sport? Like, I'm trying to save them here by saying, like, the view of Muhammad Ali, like, showing power in that photograph, the famous photograph of him, that might get you into boxing because, like, that is powerful in itself. But the beautiful representation of an experience, what's the experience there? Like, I'm not sure what they're talking about here at all. Okay, so here's their example. We're going to get something I wasn't expecting to talk about. I speak here about beauty, but only by way of example. Other aesthetic values can do the same thing. Think of viewing the music video for Michael Jackson's Thriller Night. Okay, we may take pleasure in Jackson's zombie-like dance moves, even though they are more campy and humorous than beautiful. This pleasure may motivate us to view the video again and share it with our friends. It may also inspire us to stand up and mimic Michael Jackson's dance, like, okay, crucially, this may occur even if we are not good at dancing, do not like dancing, or do not regard ourselves as dancers. That's all of that, but it's fun. So, like, you don't have to be good, you have to have fun. That's the point. Our desire to extend our enjoyment of Jackson's uncanny contortions can be strong enough that we are willing to take on the cost of imitating them, not just in terms of time and energy, but also social standing and personal identity. Yeah, you might make an ass of yourself doing it, but, like, that's part of the fun. Watching rugby gives me representation of bullfighting, a gazelle, no? Yeah, that's the thing. But, like, that's why the question is here to Marshall. It's like, it seems like this person doesn't really have a good example for what they were talking about. And then when they did have an example, they're talking about something that's not beautiful. It's something campy and might make you want to dance, but that's not what they were talking about above. Having fun and beauty, like, the difference between aesthetic beauty and having a little bit of fun is not the same thing, or at least usually not taken to be the same thing, and usually not what this author was saying earlier. So it's like, you're absolutely right. It's like, that is not how we think of rugby in some sense. It might be, but it's not usually not usual, and what the person here said, probably not. Anyhow. Okay, of course, like rewards and punishments, aesthetically appealing representations do not actually transform us. They merely motivate us to pursue the experience in a serious and sustained way. It is actually having the experience that changes us in the sense of getting us to care about the experience for its own sake. Thus, we may liken the artistic representation to a ladder we climb up and then kick away, or can kick away. At the end of the transformation, we may continue to take pleasure in artistic representations of the experience. We just no longer need this pleasure as a motivation. We will have reached a point where we find the experience appealing in and of itself. Yeah, so if you, whatever reason you got into, like, a sport, it does not have to remain a motivating reason later. I mean, but that's fine. Must an artistic representation be beautiful or otherwise aesthetically appealing in order to motivate us? Maybe not. Some psychologists claim the impulse to imitate is hardwired into us. We have a natural disposition to repeat what we see. So too for what we hear or read about. Indeed, this instinct is sometimes alleged to be foundational to human learning. Thus, perhaps an artist only has to offer us a representation of an experience to inspire us to pursue it. There is no need for the artist to beautify the representation. Of course, we might doubt the innateness of imitation. Cecilia Hayes and Kim Sterelny argue that imitation is just a particular instance of our more general human capacities for associative or social learning. This approach fits well with the math and style view I have been defending. Yet suppose the impulse to imitate is indeed a bedrock part of our cognitive makeup. A problem still arises. Modern society bombards us with images. From television and radio to billboards and social media, we are awash in representations of experiences we could pursue. So there has to be something about the image in question that sets it apart, that leads us to focus on it in particular. Beauty and other aesthetic values serve this function. They draw us in and absorb our attention. They cause us to linger on the image and return to it later. Okay, marketing is what they're talking about here, not beauty. Marketing uses beauty. Other aesthetic values serve this function in a marketing way, in that sense. They're treating art like marketing here. Now, the question is that entirely wrong? No, but, like, I feel like they're using marketing is what they mean. Okay. In addition, our proclivity for mimesis can be defeated, and one common defeater is a conflict within our sense of self. If what an image represents contradicts our core values and preferences, then our impulse to imitate it abates. This matters when it comes to the sort of transformations that concern me in this paper. I'm interested in cases where our existing preferences oppose what a prospective experience has to offer. Thus, for a representation of that experience to inspire mimesis, it needs something that can overcome such opposition. Aesthetic value can be that thing. An aesthetically valuable representation of the experience provides us with pleasure. This pleasure can cancel out the resistance created by our aversion to the experience. Alright, this just seems wrong. But like, yeah. So, an artistic representation, say, of like Muhammad Ali, be like showing that level of like power standing over a defeated opponent. Now, what is that, beauty or whatever? No. But like maybe you see that level of power and that inspires you to want to learn some more about boxing. Fine. I don't know what the hell the author is going on here, but I understand sort of like that maybe seeing Muhammad Ali box or a representation of Muhammad Ali boxing might inspire you to want a little bit of what Muhammad Ali has. And then you might go out there and do something about it. That is possible and reasonable. Not reasonable. That is plausible in terms of what someone might do. Beyond beauty and pleasure. It is worth emphasizing the range of aesthetic values that can bring us pleasure and inspire transformations. Beauty may readily come to mind, but representing an experience in a way that is humorous, cool, sublime, profound, titillating, or erotic can have the same effect. And we're finally getting to Shane's examples. So Shane knew where we were going. The sublime is worth singling out. It involves taking pleasure in what is overwhelming or threatening, which tracks how we often regard transformative experiences. Yep, you got it, Shane. Moreover, the sublime can leave us feeling dissatisfied with our mundane everyday lives. This feeling of dissatisfaction may prod us to try something new. In a similar vein, Wriggle mentions playfulness. Ooh, maybe this is what Aris should be. I don't know if he's still here, but I'm sure he actually knows about this. What am I talking about? Wriggle mentions playfulness. I'm actually almost absolutely certain Aris already knows this. Okay. It too has the benefit of loosening our hold on our current commitments. Thus, by making a transformative experience appear sublime or presenting it in a playful manner, an artist can increase our willingness to pursue this. You don't know this area of playfulness. Erotic playfulness. Okay. Yeah, so in that case, we've got a similar vein. Wriggle mentions playfulness. Here's your reference, Wriggle 2020, and we can discuss this afterwards if you need the reference. We might wonder whether a negative aesthetic value, such as being ugly, horrific, tragic, or disgusting, could do the trick. The first thing to say is that contemplating such values can bring us pleasure, and this pleasure can have the facilitating effect Mathen describes. It can motivate us to continue attending to the work that has the negative value and to optimize the pleasure we get from doing so. Horror movies can make us want to watch more horror movies. So too, mutatis mutandis, can sad songs, tragic dramas, and difficult beauties. Can the pleasure of contemplating negative aesthetic values facilitate copying? Can it motivate us to imitate the action or experience that is represented in having these values? Yes. Can you tell me the other name, Paul? It's L.A. Paul. I think her first name is Lori, but she goes by L.A. So it's L.A. Paul. So that's L.A. Paul, yeah. I think it's Lori Paul, but you search L.A. Paul, and you can search L.A. Paul and transformative experiences. Something like that. So L.A. Paul and transformative experience. Something like this, and her stuff should pop up. But yeah, she got kind of famous off that book that she wrote about transformative experiences. And I'm not hating on the book. I think it's okay. I don't really agree with it, but it's spawned all this literature about these sorts of things, which this paper is one of them. Okay, can negative aesthetic values facilitate copying? Can it motivate us to imitate the actions or experiences that is represented as having those values? See, again, who the fuck wants to have those negative values? No, but you might want to have the power that those negative feelings can have over us. Those are very powerful emotions. Like, horror feeling is a powerful emotion, and would you want to have that sort of power, that ability to inspire such feeling in people? That you might want to have. Do you want to actually horrify people? No. Do you want to be able to inspire such emotion in people? Yes. Okay. Upon reading a tragic story, we sometimes want our own lives to go tragically. No! What the fuck is wrong with this person? Like, no. I do not want any fucking tragedy to happen to me or any of you out there. This is fucking ridiculous. A case in point is the copycat suicides by readers of Sorrows of Young Werther. Of course, Goethe also assigned Werther's life positive values such as profundity, and it may be these positive values that ground pleasure and inspire imitation, but I doubt every case is like this. Sometimes we get seduced by the tragic itself. Yes, I've always wanted to kill my father, fuck my mother, and pluck my own eyes out. Yeah, exactly. This is just wrong at this point. They doubt this, but sometimes you can get seduced by the tragic itself. I think this person has confused, is just reasonably confused, is significantly confused with the actual experience of what they're talking about and some of these associated emotions. People can be attracted to tragedies, but why? No one wants to die, but they might want to die in an impressive way. It's the way that's important, not the tragedy itself. That's why we like these things. It's not because we are actually want to die. Most people don't want to die. I mean, some people might, but I think they're not looking at death, but they're looking at sort of the grand meaning associated with it. But we don't. It's just so weird. Odebussy. That's excellent there, Shane. Odebussy Rex. Okay, so yeah, I just think this person has not gotten they've gotten a lot of things conflated here. Okay, of course, negative aesthetic properties often simply repel. That's even better there, Aris. Good job. Contemplating them causes pain, which has the inverse effect of pleasure. It makes us want to stop doing whatever gave rise to the sensation. Hence, artists will depict a way of life as ugly, boring, or dull when they want to push us away from it. This is the flip side of the story I've been telling. Works of art can discourage transformations as well as encourage them. Yeah, that's the whole point, is you're trying to show the ugly side of life to get people to realize that it is ugly. That's fine. Okay. Ooh, Free Solo. I saw this movie. Good movie if you haven't seen it. Having discussed the cognitive obstacles in sections 2 to 3 and the cognitive obstacles in section 4 to 6, I will now develop an example that illustrates how parts of my theory work together. It'll be shocking if that's actually the case, but okay. The example will also bring out some latent problems that I've been ignoring. Really? I will discuss these latent problems in section 8. Consider the following story. Molly is hanging out with her friends one evening, and they decide to watch the National Geographic film Free Solo. It is a documentary about the rock climber Alex Honnold, and it covers his attempt to scale the 3,000-foot cliff face of El Capitan by himself without any support ropes. Molly pays little attention at first. She knows next to nothing about rock climbing, but the premise strikes her as dumb. What is so cool about climbing a big rock, she thinks, of all the things to do with your life? The documentary is well made, however, the views of Yosemite National Park are breathtaking, and Alex turns out to be an intriguing figure. Molly is drawn to his quiet charisma and driving passion. His struggle with self-esteem and his complicated love for his new girlfriend further endear him to her. She continues to think he is a fool for risking his life doing something so silly, but she does not deny the drama of his story. In the climax of the film, Alex attempts the free solo climb of El Capitan, and Molly surprises herself by getting nervous. Her palms sweat and her leg muscles clench as he tries a karate kick leap across the treacherous gap at the boulder problem halfway up the cliff. Molly swears aloud when Alex lands the jump and exclaims that she could never do that. But she also starts to wonder what she could do. She remembers her childhood days climbing trees in the park, which she had forgotten, and she imagines herself for a moment on the rock face of El Capitan performing this or that maneuver. When the movie ends, Molly shakes her head. Rock climbing is not for her, yet she has started to grasp why she might why it might be for some people. She has caught a glimmer of what Alex sees, the joy of pushing his body and mind in the peculiar way rock climbing requires. The next day, Molly runs across a Facebook advertisement for a New York Times story about Alex. She clicks on the link, curious to learn what has become of him since the documentary. The Times story kicks off a deep dive into the world of free solo climbing. Before she knows it, an hour has passed and she has read half a dozen other articles on the subject. How long is this fucking example? Oh my god. Okay. A few weeks later, Molly is spending time with a different group of friends. When they ask her what she wants to do, she proposes watching Free Solo. It's a good film, she promises, even if you don't like rock climbing. The scenery is magnificent and the story is hard to beat. The second time viewing the documentary is a different experience for Molly. She once again enjoys the beauty of the cinematography and the drama of the story, but they are no longer necessary expedients for getting her to attend to an ostensibly ridiculous activity. She has warmed enough to rock climbing that she pays attention to the subject of the film for its own sake. She hangs on Alex's words as he describes the different strategies for handling the boulder problem. She marvels as he navigates thin handholds, tiny edges, and slippery crevices. And once again, she wonders whether she could be a rock climber too. Not exactly like Alex, of course, but in her own way. The next morning, Molly invites her sister to go with her to the local climbing gym. Unfortunately, she finds her time there frustrating. She could not do as much as she imagined, and she does not reach the top of the wall even once. She has no Alex Honnold. But Molly likes the community which supports her efforts, and that is enough to bring her back. Bit by bit, she improves. She starts to discover firsthand the joy she experienced vicariously when watching Free Solo. After a couple of months, she settles in. She has a new hobby, one she never would have considered or wanted before encountering the documentary. You know, this could have been said in a fucking 4 lines. Like, she didn't want to rock climb. She watched a fucking movie, and she got interested in doing it, and then did it. Half this paper is fillers. It's going to be like my strategy for hard topics in college. Don't worry, you'll be in good company with all these people. So it's not even like filler. It's just how things are done. This is published in a respectable journal, and I'm not even saying this is This has made it past peer review, Shane. You know, I was thinking just a day or two ago when Viper's Gratitude was saying how my stream makes him angry sometimes, and how, like, you know, just like some of this stuff is like silly. No one gets out of my I was thinking about this. No one gets out of my stream alive. No one gets out clean, at least. None of these writers. Some, of course, come across worse than others, but no one comes out clean. And so it's just part of the feature of philosophy that it's a messy, weird area where things are wrong a lot. And sometimes crap slips through, and it's just a level of the crap that gets by stuff sometimes. So I don't know why this one got published and all the other ones did not, but, like, yeah. You would have sent it back with an R and I wrote saying write the same paper in 4 pages. It's true. Not even friends like me. When you read my shit, you're critical too. Yeah. Well, I'm critical all the time. Like, I've told this once or twice before, but, like, when I told people what I was doing, like reading papers, I told 2 different people, and well, I told a few different people. 2 people who know me personally and know, like, my, like, ability to talk about philosophy. They both had the same reaction. They're like, oh, are you destroying people? Or are you just, like, ripping them apart? And I was like, no, I'm trying to be nice and try to figure out what people have to say. But, like, they were basically like, how bad are you tearing, like, people a new asshole? I'm like, I am not tearing people a new asshole most of the time. Like, sometimes people deserve this, but, like, this is the nature of philosophy. Yeah, well, and it's the old paradox. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter paper. Yeah. So it's like, sometimes this stuff is just also a victim of people don't know how to write more concisely. But yeah. Okay. Some background conditions for transformations. Stories like Molly's are common. Yet works of art do not always change us in the way Free Solo changes her. 2 puzzles lurk here. First, why do some works of art transform us, but others do not? We may suppose Molly saw many films about many activities in the months leading up to her transformation, but only Free Solo leads her to adopt a new hobby. Such a scenario would not strain credulity. If her story unfolded this way, though, we would want to know what was special about her engagement with this film. Why did she respond to it and not the rest? This guy's a Kierkegaard guy. Makes sense why he writes like this. I guess, but like, who the fuck really writes like Kierkegaard? But yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, again, Kierkegaard's been dead a long time. Like, who still talks like this? Anywho, this brings us to the second puzzle. Why does a given work of art resonate with some people, not others? Suppose Molly is the only one among her friends affected by Free Solo. They enjoyed the film, but their lives remain unchanged. This situation also seems realistic, but it begs the question of what is special about the connection between Molly and Free Solo. Why does it resonate with her and no one else in her viewing group? We can begin to answer these questions by noting that, to motivate a transformation, a work of art must reach people where they are. It must offer them an extrinsic motivation that speaks to their pre-existing desires. Yet, different people have different pre-existing desires, so a given artwork may speak to one person but not another. Oh my god. So the whole point is that you have to like something about it. That was the whole point of this whole argument beforehand, is that you have to think something... you have to at least have some sort of a predisposition to liking the art. They spent a long time to say that. Okay, someone might object that everyone cares about pleasure. Everyone cares about things differently. That everyone cares about pleasure, but that's in the abstract. Thus, since contemplating aesthetic value gives us pleasure, and aesthetic valuable work should speak to everyone's concerns. But this objection presupposes a blunt view of both pleasure and aesthetic value. Although everyone may care about pleasure, there are many kinds of pleasure, and not everyone cares about every kind. Alright, this is just... I'm going to read fast. So too, there are many sorts of aesthetic values and preferences regarding them vary widely. Some people enjoy one sort while other people enjoy another sort. There are fans of comedies, fans of tragedies, fans of horror films, fans of action movies, but there are a few people who like absolutely everything. This is why the aesthetic pleasure offered by contemplating a particular work's aesthetic value will resonate only with this subset of its audience. Yes, of course. Different people like different shit. Shocking. In addition, a work of art never affects us in a vacuum. It is always just one of many forces pushing and pulling us in different directions. Included here are the influences of family members, friends, and social media, the press, and of course other artworks. Whether a person undergoes a transformation will be in part a function of the net impact of these forces. In some cases, the impetus provided by a given artwork will be swamped out by that of other factors. In other cases, it will be complemented by them. The story about Molly fits into the latter category. Free Solo is not Molly's only influence. She also reads the New York Times article about Heinold and finds a supportive community at a local rock climbing gym. Transformative changes seldom occur without such fortuitous coincidences. Here is another way to make the point. Why? Why do you need another way? I mentioned earlier, according to some theorists, we have a natural tendency toward mimesis. We are inclined to imitate or mimic what we see, but this tendency can be diminished or defeated. If the activity represented in a work of art runs counter to our existing sense of self, we are prone to resist it rather than copy it. There are other defeaters as well. For instance, we are unlikely to copy a behavior depicted in a song or movie. If doing so, we'll meet with heavy criticism from our loved ones. Thus, it matters that Molly's sister goes with her to the climbing gym. Without her support, Molly might have abandoned the project without giving it a chance. Of course, beauty and other aesthetic values have the power to overcome defeaters. The pleasure they provide can generate a strong motivation that does not matter what anyone else says or thinks. The opposite can be true as well. Sometimes there are too many defeaters or they're too powerful to overcome. Questions arise here about the interaction between irresistible forces and immovable objects, but we can set them aside for now. Oh my god. I'm just gonna bring up like trite, like stupid things like that have been around forever and we're just like laugh at nowadays. Okay, another consideration merits attention. When an artwork leads us to imagine what an argument leads us to imagine may fail to align with what we actually experience. This is so for two reasons. Even on the most optimistic accounts, art does not give us a perfect and complete knowledge of what a given experience is like. It only lets us see through a glass darkly. Oh my god. Just stop. Second, art reveals the experiences of others, and although we may imagine things will go similarly for us, they often do not. If our own experiences falls far short of what a work of art led us to expect, we may become frustrated. Our disappointment in things that are not going in reality as they went in our minds may lead us to abandon the experience before the force of habituation kicks in. The idea I had for this paper is not going the way this paper actually is going in reality. This Aristotle says, this is a good example of the bad kind of academic writing. Most of this hedges or caveats don't need to be said or could have been footnoted, but he hedges because he's mimicking careful philosophers. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Is that this feels like he has read someone like Kierkegaard, and he is mimicking their style because he is inspired by that style to write great philosophy, and instead we've got a bad mimic, basically. Yeah. Beating up a shit ton of strawmen. Yeah, I mean, these are just not very interesting arguments, and so it's a shadow boxing, basically, is what this is. There's no one there. And, like, strawman's another way to say it. Wait, I have a question. Are we considering rock climbing an art here? The author is considering the movie Free Solo, which was about rock climbing, to be art. And that's what it was. As far as I know, the example never actually discusses the person watching actual rock climbing. They go to the gym, but they only discuss the movie Free Solo and a article in the New York Times about it. So that's what the article is considering art. Although I would consider, any sport a kind of art in general. And so rock climbing as a kind of sport would qualify, in my opinion. As I was saying before, when it comes to boxing or soccer or rock climbing for that matter, the demonstration of like human activity, of human beauty, like what we can do, jump or like, punch or whatever, like that sort of thing, we can find like human activity beautiful. And so like that sort of stuff should have aesthetic value in itself. Or we might think it to have aesthetic value in that we are demonstrating the limits of humanity, and that showing the great things we can do, and we find that beautiful. Okay. Yeah, like that's fine if you like how you break these things down. I have a particular view on art, but like I understand that, like that I'm not like giving like a great argument for it here. I'm just saying why I think it could be considered art, and I do. But like you don't have to like buy that. Like it's not there's nothing that's gonna really hang on my theory of art that like includes sport. Okay. Aesthetic pleasure can help with this problem too. The appeal of an artistic representation of an activity or experience is sometimes enough to keep us going to keep us going where we become frustrated and things are not turning out as we have anticipated. It can inspire us to chase a dream that is not yet real. That's fair, you can always chase dreams. But sometimes further extrinsic motivations are necessary. This is why it is fortuitous that Molly finds a supportive community at the climbing gym. The pleasure of the camaraderie helps compensate for her irritation over not being as good at rock climbing as she imagined she would be. Shit's hard. People don't realize. Finally, as mentioned before, the habituation process does not always succeed. Although we often come to enjoy an activity, the more we do it, this is not always the case. Sometimes we come to hate it. There are several theories why, but one is especially apropos. Habituation may result in an increase in our familiarity with it and mastery of the new activity. According to this theory, any new activity is processed slowly and with difficulty, but as our exposure to the activity increases, we process it more quickly and with greater ease. Oh my god, we get better at it. It's amazing. We experience this increase in fluency as pleasurable. Yet sometimes we lack aptitude for the activity in question. We remain at a low level of fluency despite our extended efforts. As a result, we never experience the pleasure that comes with mastery. We are stuck with the pain of ineptitude. Luck is on Molly's side here as well. She turns out to be good at rock climbing. Her initial frustrations dissipate as she takes to the activity. Okay. In sum, we have a work of art. A work of art will transform us only if certain background conditions obtain. We must have an affinity for the specific aesthetic value that the artwork possesses. In addition, the other influences in our life must complement the force of the artwork. Some support from friends and family will help in this regard. So too will reinforcement from other media, including other art. Finally, we must have an aptitude for what the work of art is inspiring us to do. Okay, I think we will have to get to... Yeah, so this is it. This is the home stretch. Last 2 pages. The hidden and dangerous power of art. And finally, this is what we've been waiting for. Where is the magic? Finally, we've got to the magic that I mentioned very earlier. My tendons would literally snap at rock climbing. Hey, give yourself some credit, man. You might be okay. I've gone rock climbing before. It's fun. You can go bouldering, basically. You're not going like straight up. You're climbing. It's more like you're climbing up a boulder on the hill, and it's very similar to like rock climbing, but you're not going like straight up. But you could like climb a complicated rock in some sense. The magic was back when we were filming Orgasm. That was like the best example we're gonna get of all that. The funny part is, that would have been a better thing for them to talk about because that would have focused this paper much better. Yeah, this part was supposed to talk about art and transformation, but we're getting here. Maybe now. Oh my God, are we not even? We talked about Wriggle for a half second. We didn't even get back to it. Yeah, you may have been right. Marshall says, I see people playing squash in a local gym, so I start playing. I don't see that as art. Well, it doesn't have to be, DeMarshall. It says, look, the fact that in the example, if like you hated the idea of squash, I mean, just because you see someone play, you may have no feeling about it, but the example is that you personally disliked the idea of it. Damn it, Shane. Okay. But, yeah, I was too excited to see that, and I was hoping for it. But that's actually not true, Shane. There was one example of a theory of playfulness that may actually be helpful to Aristotle, and if we get one good reference out of this, that would actually redeem all of this time. Okay. Yeah, well, I was hoping I was right too, Aris. Yeah, well, Marshall, it's like more has to be going on than just like watching someone play a sport. You have to sort of had doubts about the sport and then realize that like there was more to it than you initially realized. That's like the goal here. Okay, to review, art does not overcome the cognitive obstacle. That's like saying Regal was the Messiah, but just not for your religion. Yeah, well, why does it have to be for me? Shane, I can take pleasure in someone else's success. That's fine. I don't need to be saved. Let someone else be saved. Makes you think I can be saved. Far too late for me, my friends. To review, art does not overcome the cognitive obstacle to motivating transformations. It merely sidesteps this obstacle. It does not give us knowledge of what it would be like for us to undergo the transformation. It just seduces us into thinking we are gaining such knowledge. Works of art often achieve this effect by representing transformative experiences in a beautiful or otherwise aesthetically appealing way. Yeah, you're going to the hot place? Yeah. I don't know if God cares about anything I've done, so if there is a God, I don't know if they care about me. So, who knows? So, basically, now they're saying it's all as Shane was saying, false messiah. It's all just smoke and mirrors, and you can't get any knowledge out of art, because if you buy their story, then basically what's happening is you're just getting taken in by all the ancillary things. The story about the cognitive obstacles also revolves around aesthetic appeal. Nothing intrinsic to the transformative experience attracts us to it, not at first. Instead, it is the aesthetic properties with which the artist clothes the experience that do the initial work. The artist adds aesthetic features that are not essential to the experience, and these inessential features draw us in. Then, if we engage with the experience long enough and other favorable conditions obtained, we end up enjoying the experience in its own right. This paper is proof that there's a God, Noger, that God wanted you to read it, that God wanted you to feel like you're feeling now. Aris, I don't think you appreciate how dead I am to like reading philosophy papers. Nothing has changed in my world. I've read it. This is why it's called philosophy roulette. Sometimes it's going to suck. I lost the game of philosophy roulette. It's going to happen. And we thought it was going to be good at the beginning, too. We were all excited about this paper. Not because I didn't want it to. It's because there was nothing for me to learn here. Like, I've not actually... It is just par for the course. Like, it wasn't a good philosophy paper. I've read bad philosophy papers before. There was nothing to transform. Yeah. Okay. There's still a chance in hiddenness. No, you're an example too. You didn't want to, so it didn't. Okay, we can say what the author said here. I was not in the right, mental life or whatever position, and therefore I was resistant to it. That's fair. Fair enough. Hiddenness. Should be open to believing this. The day I start just believing garbage arguments, I mean that is basically I don't know. Then I will have transformed myself. I will be a different person. So if one day I start just believing crappy arguments, I will then have become a different person, transformed from the person I am now. That will be I don't know what that would be like. I'd have to go under some sort of that would be in a mental position. I don't know what it is to be in now. Yeah. But I can't talk to it because clearly I can't know what that is. Okay. Art's power is seldom obvious. For the most part, it remains hidden and obscure. Exactly. It will have only been the ancillary things, not the paper. So wait, you were a Zoroastrian? No. I think Shane was making a joke there to Marshall. Okay, for the most part, it remains hidden and obscure. This is the problem. This person has no idea what they're talking about when it comes to art. Take what happens with the cognitive obstacle. I liken the role of aesthetic value to rewards and punishments such as those used to motivate children to develop good habits, but there is a difference. In the case of children, there is usually a clear separation between the reward and the noble act, between the extrinsic benefit and the thing in itself. Not so with art. The skilled artist weaves together features that are essential to the ideal and one that provides aesthetic interest. The result is an amalgam of essential and accidental properties that is difficult to parse. We find ourselves pulled towards the whole thing without being able to tell which aspects of the whole are drawing us in. See, this is the problem. This person can't tell the difference between marketing and art. This is the author's problem. They can't tell the difference between marketing and art. That's very this is what in their example of the cigarette ad above. That's why it was such a weird example that they said that you might want to make a cigarette ad by watching a cigarette ad. It's no. I mean, maybe if you were predisposed to be in marketing and you thought, wow, that was a great bit of marketing, I'd like to make something like that. But I don't think that making an ad is what the vast majority of us think of when we see an ad. That's just not what happens. Okay. See, and they're back to advertisers. See? This person doesn't understand this shit. And this is why they're harping on it, because they want to talk about what they don't understand. And and they think it's interesting. This is the psychology of it. They don't understand it. They think it's interesting, and they're talking about because they think we're going to think it's interesting too. But if we get it, it's not interesting, and they're just wasting our time. Advertisers take advantage of this fact. We open a copy of Vogue and see a spread for Gucci sunglasses. We find ourselves wanting to own a pair, but it is unclear why. No, it's not unclear on why at all. It's because they're advertising and they're good at it, and we know this. It is not unclear at all. God damn it. Advertising is effective. You should know this. It is possible we are responding to the model rather than the sunglasses. No shit. It's not unclear at all. Maybe their smile speaks to us, or their sex appeal, or it could be the setting in which the model has been photographed. The fact that the model is at a party or on a beach might have caught our eye. We can rarely tell which of these factors is driving our pleasure response, as Mathen notes. We tend to lack the sensitivity necessary for such fine-grained analysis. No. Something similar holds for the cognitive obstacle. The infusion of aesthetic value makes it hard to judge the accuracy of an artistic representation. The aesthetic value of the artwork gives rise to pleasure, which inclines us towards what the artistic artwork represents. But it is seldom obvious to us that this inclination is aesthetic in nature. The experience of beauty and the experience of truth have similar qualitative feel, so we often confuse the two. Really? I have no fucking problem separating out when I'm talking about philosophical truths and aesthetic beauties. I have no problem with this. No one fucking sees a painting and thinks that's what people actually look like unless it's a hyper realistic one, and even then usually you know better. Yeah, exactly, Iris. This makes no sense what they're saying, and I'm more annoyed with the reviewers at this point than the author. This problem is exacerbated in the case of transformative experiences because we lack firsthand acquaintance with what the artwork represents. We cannot check whether the representation is accurate. We cannot compare it with how things went for us in the past. Thus, we are easily duped. We readily feel as though a work of art has conveyed what it would be like for us to undergo a transformative experience when it has not. This shouldn't have passed peer reviewed. Nintendo, what's up? Yes, it is Nintendo. It is in a DC journal, and that is our major gripe here. This probably, none of us like this, and that's really annoying. And welcome in, Nintendo. I hope you've been doing well. Danger. To compound matters, artists can render all sorts of things aesthetically appealing. They can even use the power of aesthetics to draw us to the experience of evil people. We see this in work depicting rough heroes such as Tony Soprano and Humbert. These characters are rough in that they embody immoral ideals, but they are heroes in that they are portrayed in ways that make us root for them. The artists who create these characters make them so aesthetically appealing that we admire them even though they do horrible deeds. The intermixing of aesthetic values with the character's evil traits can even lead us to regard the evil traits themselves as attractive. Holy fuck, I think this person has no idea what's going on in the world and has like even less understanding of how like people actually make characters relatable without like they're making them more human, not like fucking like everything is not just like good and bad. Like, oh my god, is like everything like TV supposed to be like the good's over here and the bad's over there? Yikes. And Humbert is a pedophile, kidnapper, and criminal. Why would the fuck would we want to root for them? I don't know. I haven't read Humbert. I don't know this story. I should probably. But like, yeah, like this person, the author here is just strange. Like, they think we're rooting for them? Dude, I know that when I watched Sopranos, I wanted to go out and beat someone with a crowbar in the back of a strip club. Yeah, I mean, this is like, that's the problem here. The Sopranos TV show is a great show because it had a variety of people in it. It does not make you want to go beat the fuck out of someone with a crowbar. Like, that's not what was happening. And like the fact that the author doesn't understand that means this author really has a very strange view of the world. This paper is dumb. Such as a lot of philosophy is dumb. What's that rule? 90% of everything is crap. This is just falling in that 90%. Of course, on my view, beauty and other aesthetic values do not themselves change our preferences. They do not make us like what we previously did not like. Instead, they got us to engage with the activity of or experience in question. This engagement is what alters our attitudes. We might hope this process would not work in the case of evil. We might hope that upon engaging with the activity, we will realize its evil nature and back away. This is finally where I think this author what they should have written. Can we make art to inspire us to be evil? And if they had a background in Kierkegaard, maybe this would have actually been a good paper. Like they could have said, could we actually make a artworks that could inspire us to evil? That would have been a good paper, and then they could have drawn on the inability for us to imagine where we were going, and then like we could talk about the fall. Like might not have known what it was to be to actually become the thing we hated or something like that. That would have been a fucking great paper. Now, like right here, this person could have been smart. They could have done this whole paper right here. We might hope this process would not work in the case of evil. This would have been the premise of an actually good paper. They rewrote the paper talking about all this shit, but instead of like talking about free solo and some random person who doesn't think rock climbing is cool, why don't we talk about us being attracted to the dark side of humanity and the problem of evil? Then we might have gotten somewhere. But instead we got this mess of a paper. Sometimes things work out this way, as Aaron Meskin et alia suggests, but not always. Habituation can get the better of us. Repeat engagements with the stimulus can diminish our resistance to it and lead us to acquire a taste for it. And we can acquire a taste for all kinds of things. We can even become habituated into liking dastardly acts and ignoble ways of life. Yeah, you watch Breaking Bad and decide to get lung cancer. Exactly. It's like, the fuck are you talking about, author? In conclusion, what makes art powerful also makes it dangerous. Transformations are not always for the good, and art's ability to inspire them can be put to negative ends. This is not a new point. We find it already in Plato and Aristotle. Thus, the lesson they draw applies here as well. We must be careful about art's place in society. Wow. And then it ends with the like conservative, like, oh my God, art's gonna ruin the kids. Rock and roll is like destroying the youth. Wow. Okay. This may actually be one of my least favorite things I've read. And I've read some things that are just like terribly boring, but like this is just like, not only do I not like what the person said, I don't like how they said it. I think they said like crappy things at the end, and they weren't even clever in any of their ways they said it. Yeah, I mean, this is like exactly. It's like, oh my God, we're inspired to do evil. Like, this is the thing. It's like, yeah, video games are corrupting the youth here. Negative exemplars. You know, I've been remiss. I was trying to go on to fill people and have a listing under of all the things I've read. I still mean to do that, but I've never had something that like this is just like where I just am gonna call like this is a fuck up. No, DeMarshall, this is competently done in the sense that like it was written in a way that like you can learn something about this area of philosophy. Like it's not actually like so bad. It's so bad that it shouldn't have been published, but it's not so bad that you can't like learn something. So like this is yeah, like no, he didn't recommend it actually. But like Cinesemiotics actually recommended it, and it looked like a good fucking recommendations from the outset. Yeah. Yeah, Shane says, this is teachable material. Like, this is a really good paper that if you want to go and show how not to do certain things, because it does a lot of them, that you could show that, like, don't do this stuff. Yeah. And so it's like, it's not a poorly written paper. The question here is, I didn't look him up. Y'all said he was a Kierkegaard person. I would think this guy's like early career, not like this is not a grad student. If I had to guess, I'd say this person's like a junior professor somewhere. What's interesting about this paper is that it's bad to people who know what's going on. It mimics philosophy and academics, but when you take the time to understand it, it's horrible. So it's an informative badness, one that shows the substance matters. Yeah, that's right. This one feels like this is like a mimic of a good of what someone who doesn't really understand what good philosophy is wrote good philosophy. So this is why I feel like it's someone who is skilled. They're already past being a grad student. Like they've already done like this might work for a bit of a when you're a grad student, but is not going to do it. Yeah, fully promoted, exactly. So I don't want to beat up on this person, but like this is a junior philosopher. They've been in the business for a decade now. So yeah, they're not like a senior philosopher, but like this is and they're a little past early career. Yeah. So like yeah, they're not just a few years out. This is what I felt like. This person is established, but they don't quite have the substance of what they need to be doing. Now, the other problem here is, of course, we're criticizing JAPA for publishing stuff we think is not good philosophy. And the issue is, did they just get like two crappy reviewers? Maybe, but like it feels like the reviewers didn't either understand the material either, because nothing got said here. And it wasn't even, I didn't even think it was unclear that nothing got said. I thought a lot of this, as everyone was pointing out, there was a lot of bits of hedging, and they never really stated a very strong thesis. It was just sort of a dodge. And so, but see, that's a problem. Yeah, but see, DeMarshall, someone should have caught that at this point for this person. Yeah, 14 years out and promotion to a full professor means you should take some heat. Yeah, I have no problem. Like, this person should be able to take some shit. But, like, the fact that, like, they didn't actually have much of a thing, the fact that, well, what's really disconcerting to me is like I feel like they missed all the important phenomena here. the problem with this, Shane, is that it wasn't even that good of a twist. It was a bad twist, and unless it was one of like his really really bad movies, but like it was like nothing here actually happened. So there was no twist for me. It was just it fell down at the end. The twist was that they didn't say anything when you figured they were going to. Okay, so that's what you were saying? Okay. Yeah. And it's just like it's like a shitty twist. But what concerned me is like they didn't understand the material that they were talking. Not that they were talking about. Not that they didn't understand the material. That they didn't understand the examples. They basically accused all of art as not being substantive and saying it was very mysterious and all of it is smoke and mirrors. And that is generally not what people think good art is or most art is. And so the fact that they were talking about art in that way over and over and over again is really, really disconcerting, especially when they're talking about art and trying to make some hay out of it. It just seems like they have the wrong conception of any of the philosophy in the area of aesthetics. The mixed them? Yeah, they basically said here right at the end is that. They use the power of aesthetics to draw us to the experiences of like they can that they're using the power of aesthetics to draw us to something else. The problem is, and so this is all marketing, is what they say, and like the author here has not understood that there is something. The whole point of there being aesthetics is that there is more to art than just marketing. And that's the whole point of like the idea of beauty is that there is more to it. Now, if they want to put out the thesis that there is nothing to beauty, that it is all horseshit in aesthetics and it is all like just like cognitive tricks, that's something different. But that's not what they were saying at the get-go, and that's not what I don't think anyone actually believes that, because art wouldn't last if. Like it wouldn't last. It wouldn't be any great art if people thought it was all marketing tricks or like there was something very mysterious and like psychological about it. But even then there'd be something to it. It would be telling you something about us and our psychology and why we like certain things. Like Marshall says it should have done some reading about the difference of theories of these two topics. Yeah, that's why this is so teachable, is that they did do a lot of it, but it just looks like they didn't understand it. And the worst part is it looks like the reviewers didn't understand it too. And the whole point of having reviewers is you get someone who understands it. Shane says, "Hi, we're super advanced aliens that have traveled across a galaxy to find your planet, yet we lack the technology to scan your planet to find out the molecules that cover 70% of the surface could kill us. What a twist." Yeah, but that was War of the Worlds. What was that movie? Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. That, I didn't see that movie. I was so angry when I heard that I was like, are these Martians morons? Like, come on. Did they not know the simplest thing about, like, the biology and evolutionary biology on our planet? Yeah, like, oh my God. So, yeah. So, yeah, that was a terrible one. But see, I was thinking of, what's it called? The Sixth Sense or whatever, the good one. That's what I think of. I try to ignore, like, the bad ones. Yeah. Yeah, the good one. Well, it was the first one, and that's why it made a splash. I didn't watch the crappy ones. I heard some of the other ones were like less terrible. But yeah, I don't know. Finally, many thanks to the editors and referees of this journal whose helpful comments greatly improved this paper. I mean, where was it before that it ended up here? I don't know. I mean, it, like I said, it feels like it was almost competently written, almost. Yeah. But yeah, like there's two things that happened here. Basically, they said that art doesn't have any meaning, and then therefore transformative experiences are dangerous. It's like this garbage. Sometimes if you resubmit enough, they let it through just to get rid of it. No, that's not how it works in philosophy. Nintendo Pharmacon. That is not how it works in this area. I've sent tons of stuff out. It just gets rejection after rejection, and then after a while, you just get tired of it. This is a good enough journal that they are getting good quality stuff. They're not going to publish it to just get rid of it. That's not how this works here. Like that in philosophy, getting a publication in a good quality journal is like everything in like the professional sense, and so they don't and the journal reputation really matters. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if they like someone starts like giving the journal crap about this paper, and the journal's gonna feel really bad about it, and they might even like do an internal investigation. I doubt that's gonna happen, but like this is just like I feel like this is one that slipped through, but it's not it's just bad luck. Yeah, you only get one shot at each journal. You can't resubmit. So, someone had to win the reviewer lottery, though, you know? And I think that's what this one was. This one hit the reviewer lottery. Whoever they sent this to happened to like it for whatever reason. And it doesn't really matter what it was. This is a reviewer lottery. That's all it can be. And it's bound to happen at some point that some paper is going to slip through for whatever dumb reason. So. Oh. If I only knew which week that was, I could send out papers and get them published. Okay, so at least if we get one good reference out of this, Aristotle, we got Nick Riggle 2020 Transformative Expression in Becoming Someone New, Essays on Transformative Experience, Choice, and Change. Yeah, but like, no. But the joke is if like I could actually like if I could send stuff out that week and get anything I sent out that week would get published. But I mean, I understand. That's not how anything works usually. Okay, so yeah, well, at least Nick Riggle's worth time. This person I will avoid, unfortunately. Okay. Yes, the reviews are completely anonymous, although some people are starting to change that. Well, okay, that's not entirely true. Quite often you can find out who someone is if you go looking for it. So like for this paper here, I don't know if you can see it. This was presented at maybe one or two different conferences, so maybe the reviewers could find out who this was. Yeah. So it should be anonymous. That doesn't mean things are anonymous, especially if you're in a certain area. People know who the people are in the area, and so you get a sense of like who's writing what. Do I know if that happened in this case? No, I don't know. But things should be completely anonymous. That doesn't mean they always are. Like, you know, there's funny stories about people be like, oh, even this person wouldn't write this sort of thing, but like, you know, yeah. Sometimes people can tell. And the reviewers are anonymous from the author. That's correct. But like I said, it's not always the case, but like you're supposed to be. Yeah, so to tell you the truth, what this really feels like is someone had this idea that I feel like didn't really understand aesthetics. And then they wrote this paper because they were in like the metaphysics of change, and then they sort of constructed this paper to like write what they wanted to, but they're just abusing aesthetics because they didn't really understand aesthetics, or they don't really understand art, and they just caught a bunch of pop references that they liked, and they got the fucking thing on Degas wrong. That's the problem with like Degas, like, and so this is what it was. Anyhow, anything else to say? I'm done with this. I want to just go like it's over. The thing is, a lot of aesthetics and philosophy where people don't understand art, they're just pretending to just want to defend magic ideas. That's fair, and maybe then that's a problem for the area of aesthetics. But like the fact that they just got the analysis of Degas wrong, the idea that like when you run after a pretty bird, you just keep running after the pretty bird to see the pretty bird. That's the problem. Like that's weird. Like they just all the examples here just seem so just misguided. And then they're trying to make hay out of like these misguided examples. Like I just don't think this person has the relevant experience or understanding to really do it. And you can construct a good philosophy paper. I don't know how good, but you can construct a competent philosophy paper out of all these bad examples, and then clearly someone else who doesn't understand shit will be like, well, it was a competent philosophy paper and should get published. It's like, yeah, but like this is like this example of like where they're saying upon reading a tragic story, we sometimes want to go live our own lives tragically. Hell fucking no. Maybe you want to live your life with a bit more meaning, and that's like is the possibility of tragedy could happen, but it's just like, damn. Yeah, exactly. There are amazing people. Cynthia Freeland, Nick Riggle, Noel Carroll, John Gibson. But there are a lot of duds. But a lot of duds everywhere. But like this person, the idea that you would want to go and have a tragedy in your life is just so wrong-headed that like it sort of like mind-boggling. What is this person talking about? You don't actually mean to say what you're saying here. You mean to maybe have like passion or craziness in your life where something could go tragically, but you don't actually want to die in a tragic manner. Like that's terrible. Like everyone dies in the end. Like how is that a fucking goal? Like this is just it's stupid. It's like patentedly stupid. That's all. And so the idea that like you'd say something like that is weird. And it kind of shows that the author doesn't quite have a grasp on the relevant phenomena here, because you couldn't possibly mean that. Yeah. That's right. You don't have to know many tragedies, and it's super it's just a I don't it's not just weird. It just seems wrong. Like it even on like if you were going to read this like flat-footedly, it's like you say, well, tragedy is something you avoid. Like by definition. Yeah. Well, that's the problem, Aristotle. There could have been any number of good examples, and none of them, I think, like they didn't get mentioned here. Like they just didn't. Okay, this is it though for this. I'm like we could beat up on this person more, this paper more. I don't want to beat up on this more. It's like it's not worth any of our time really. So that is it for this. Like. Thank you for being here. Thank you for slogging through this. It is an instructive paper, as we've been also saying, because it does a lot of things right in terms of like academic writing, even though it seems to miss the entire point of the substance that it should have got.